What is up, Squared Nation? Welcome back to No Counters, No Combos. We are back in the Four Corners, which is the official podcast of No Counters, No Combos. It has been quite some time since we've been here. Responsibilities, laziness, potential injuries. There's so many things that we could chalk up to the lack of consistency with this podcast. It's mainly been on my end, just dealing with everyday dad stuff, and I'm not going to apologize for prioritizing my family and my kids over my YouTube channel. But I am glad to be back. I'm glad to be joined by our co-host Matt from the Censor Bros. What's going on, man? It feels like it's been like a year since I've talked to you, so just catch me up on what's going on.
It's been a minute. I am still pretty rigorously testing. With the reveal, I know we'll talk about it later, of the Cell Ultimate deck. As someone who plays Weenie Aggro, I cried a little bit because Dormant becomes a viable card again, which makes Weenie Aggro a non-viable strategy. So, to future test, I opened up Black Trunks, and I'm not gonna lie, it changed my perspective on the format. As someone who played Gogeta Xeno, I mean, since it was revealed, I had been testing that deck and perfecting play lines, and by the time I left PA, I considered myself a pretty top kind of strategy Gogeta Xeno player.
Yeah.
And when I got here, I kind of switched it up a little bit. I started playing some different decks, and to be able to play black again in a mid-range deck that can control the game state in the way that Black Trunks can, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again later, but it changed my mind on what I thought was good this format.
Mm-hmm.
And that is definitely, now with another week of testing in front of me, what I'll be bringing to PPT Louisville.
That's next
What you
week,
been up
right?
to?
That's next week.
Yeah, 6 days.
It's coming down. It's coming down the pipeline. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. I have a couple of things that I want to say about the current format right now. I think it's a very healthy format. Best of one with pre-side, I feel like it gives a lot of bad decks a shot because if you have the right, side deck tech for your specific matchup, I think you can kind of survive and tread water. So it makes a lot more decks viable. But I think when you're coming down to like the nitty gritty of everything, and it's gonna sound weird because it's technically not, but we're in a triangle format again. And here's what I mean. I don't mean that there are three best decks there, because there are not three best decks, but there are easily three best colors, and each color beats the other. So obviously, right now it's black, yellow, and red. Red beats yellow, yellow beats black, black beats red, and the just vicious cycle just kind of continues in the triangle format that it is. But the nice thing about it is that there's two representatives from each color. Red, obviously, you have the new U7 Goku and King Piccolo. Yellow, you've got Trunks and Vegeta and Sin. And black, you have Super Saiyan God Trunks and Gogeta Xeno. So there's a lot of options, which is great. I like also that, just a couple of sets ago, black finally got its own identity. And it's nice because that's always been like an auxiliary color. It's always been like a support color, with the overall mechanic and stuff like that. But the fact that it has its own legs right now is really nice because it adds more depth to the meta. Now, there are a lot of very strong black cards, in my opinion. I don't think any of them need to be addressed in any type of way. But the thing that black does best, in my opinion, is that black is very good at controlling not only board and hand, but the type of control that black does, it's not like discard. It's everything's going to the warp. Like everything goes to the warp. Like you warp battle cards off board, you warp battle cards from hand, and that's very powerful because there's not a lot of ability for other colors besides black to interact with their warps. I think that's very, very strong in my opinion. Personally, I think the best black deck is going to end up being Trunks. I think Gogeta Xeno is very good. But like you said, with green kind of coming back a little bit, there's a little bit of cautiousness that you have to take with that because there's a lot of weenies. But I think Trunks is very strong for a couple of reasons, and I'll list them and then let you get right into your takes. Trunks is passive advantage. So you win the card economy game against your opponent without giving them cards. It's spot removal whenever you want on the Awakened Leader. Just there's no cost restriction on the warping of a battle card, and it can play at a very very high life total, and it has a lot of different loops that you can just kind of continue to do that give you advantage. So perfect example, the one drop, or not, I shouldn't say the one drop, but the two drop Gohan blocker that you can continuously loop from the warp with your combination of your Kai Unison on the board is going to gain her a marker and draw you a card every single turn and give you a blocker. So that's very nice. I understand now why they made the SR when it leaves the field it gets RFG'd, like you can't get it again, because being able to loop that card would have been disgusting. And even the double striker, even though the Spirit Boost one tap one, like even though you need to have 10 cards in warp for him to get double strike, you can just constantly loop that guy. So yeah, those are my opinions on it. I did play it this weekend. It wasn't an optimal build, but we'll get into that later. So what are your thoughts on Super Saiyan God Trunks?
Okay, so again, like I mentioned earlier, I played Gogeta Xeno from the start when it was at full power. And I remember when thwarting got revealed, the deck shifted.
Yeah.
So before thwarting, the deck was an aggro deck, but it was a turn 3 to 4 aggro deck. It was a deck that gained a lot of advantage really, really fast and spanned the board, and then had one turn where you just turned everything sideways. But it was vulnerable to a lot. What thwarting did was it gave the deck a chance to step back and say, I'm going to plant this card on the board, and if you don't deal with it, I'm going to beat your face in. And then they hit a lot of stuff in the deck, right? So they've slowed the deck back down, right? So you got rid of the wild draw loop with the smoke unison. They got rid of the Trunks that bounces to hand, so that's a lot of advantage lost there. And now you've made True Fighting Spirit Goku unique.
Yeah.
Which I think is, out of all of those, the biggest hit to the deck.
Yes, 100%.
Speaking because now you can't spam those on the board.
Correct.
And then wait for your turn to go in, and if they counter, they're warping 3 to 4 cards. It just doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah.
So the reason that I think Trunks is better is when you're playing both decks mid range, right? The way Gogeta finishes games is it's striking those life to give those one drops advantage, or you're just playing the 20k barrier bodies. You're just playing them as cantrips and swinging and passing. If you're gonna play a mid range game, Trunks does it way better. And the reason is you're building a wall of defense, right? So let's just talking about Pan. A lot of people are down on this card because it's vulnerable and it doesn't negate the attack. What I will say about Pan, and the reason that I think she is a great card for this deck, is because you're going to pay 1. You're going to put a card in the warp, which is fueling your entire engine. Let's say you warp Power Awaken. That's a great play.
Yeah.
And then they're probably not going to combo up on that attack. You can combo that Pan off.
Sure.
So having an in-archetype topo, just like Mechi has Poutine, is huge. But that is not the best part about this deck. Making that 5-drop Trunks SR a cantrip is, for me, what takes this deck over the top. Because when that card resolves more than once, all of your Overrealms no longer have an effort to make them cost anything.
Right.
Because you're only running 3s and 6s. You're not running any Overrealm 7 or Overrealm 4. It's all 3s and 6s. So if you have no cards in the drop and you have a Trunks on the board, you can swing, and now that Overrealm is just going to resolve.
Yeah.
So you're almost twice every turn, because you're going to resolve lead, and you're going to draw off of the Unison. That's +2 plus a clean 2. Now you're going to draw a third card because you're going to resolve Time Regulator.
Yeah.
Right? And now you're also setting up your warp.
Yeah.
So the way that the deck creates advantage isn't necessarily interactable, because there aren't a lot of decks in other colors that interact with your opponent's warp. So now you have basically two hands. Just like Android 16 has its energy,
Yep.
this deck has its warp. So you're taking those cards out of your hand and putting them back in your hand. You know what I mean? So you warp a 1-drop Gohan, a 2-drop Gohan blocker, you're gonna pay 1 and bounce it right back to the board.
Sure.
So you just drew 2, put a body on the board, and drew another card.
Sure.
So, in my opinion, if you're gonna play mid range, right, you're still running thwarting, and you still get the bonus of it. The difference is at its core, the end of this big soliloquy that I'm going on, is thwarting changes how you play each deck. In Gogeta Xeno, it's an aggro piece. In Trunks, it's a tempo piece.
I agree.
And I think that at its core is why Trunks is better right now. Because if the big bad in the format is Sin or Red UI, how do you deal with it?
Sure.
Well, how do I deal with Sin? Okay, I have a Unison on the board, Spirit Boost 1, that 9-drop's gone.
Yeah.
Oh, what about the 1-drop? If you're not playing Super Kamehameha and Dark Power in the main, you're probably not playing the deck correctly. Because you're going to stick a Dark Power against Sin, and they're going to go to play that card, and either you have a Super Kamehameha in hand to stop the 1-drop from hitting the board, or they have to discard the 2 cards that they just drew.
Yeah.
So it's a net neutral. And now when they play that 4-drop, if they lock your leader, you're just going to thwarting the 9-drop the next turn or do it again. And they can only do it this many times. And you're going to continue to accrue advantage.
That right there, I think you hit the nail on the head, because I think we talked about it, if not on last podcast, the episode before. There's not a lot of recursion from drop in this game. There's not a lot of recyclability in this game. Like, I think about cards like in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, there's no Pot of Avarice. There's no Monster Reborn, like, for this game, really. I mean, you could probably find a couple things here and there to try to be cute, but efficient cards that do it every single turn doesn't really exist. So the fact that not only like, recursion from drop is good, recursion from warp is excellent, because for the most part, if you want to hurt your opponent, you're going to send their stuff to the warp, because there's no way of them getting it back. Well, now if something gets warped in Trunks, you're just like, all right, I'll just, I'll play it next turn. It's no big deal. Whatever.
You gonna warp one of
So
my battle cards? I'm
yeah,
gonna do
okay,
it.
sure, no problem. Yeah, you know what? Okay, yeah, the only one that is a huge downside when it leaves the field is the 5-drop. Everything else can come back. So yeah, I mean, playing the deck myself, and again, a suboptimal build. I haven't really Rain Man the deck yet. I haven't really crunched any numbers yet. I haven't really, I haven't had my Goodwill Hunting moment with the deck yet, so to speak. So I just kind of played cards that I thought would be good, and Time Regulator Trunks is huge. That card is just disgusting. Yeah, that card is disgusting, just because it could, like, guarantee you a turn 2 awaken if you don't hit that 5th Saiyan into the warp off your Unison.
So, and I found a way to almost guarantee it. You can't guarantee anything in this game. RNG is a factor
of course.
in every single deck.
Of course.
Unless you're like feeding.
Yeah.
But so I guess stack your deck. But so with this deck, you're gonna put a card in the warp on turn 1 every time. So you're gonna mulligan for a Unison and either a copy of the Gohan or the Goten, right? So math says I'm running a 55 card build.
Okay.
I think that's the right number for me right now.
Okay.
55 and then the 15 in the side.
Yeah.
Almost all of my battle cards are Saiyans. Almost. I will probably say like 2 to 4 maybe aren't, and it's because the Kai cards in this deck are just too good.
Yeah.
So turn 1, you warp a Gohan, draw your 2 cards, pay 1, and you play the card you just warped. He is going to warp 3 cards. So instead of starting on turn 2 with 1 in the warp, you're starting with 3. Now you have that Unison in your hand. You're going to warp a 4th, probably a Saiyan, probably a Power Awakened.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to pay 2 for your Unison and warp another 3.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, that's 7.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not hitting 5 of 7 at the minimum, your ratios are off.
Yeah.
So you're going to awaken on turn 2 if your mulligan's solid. If not, it's going to hit turn 3. Because if you're not hitting it on turn 3, you're probably losing the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that you can get away with Awakening turn 3 because there's just so much utility with the deck.
It's not a bad thing, but
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad thing, but you definitely 100% you want to be awakened by turn 3, because you want to start just pressuring your opponent. That awakened turn, activate main unawakened, draw 2, and then awaken, untap 1, draw 1. That's 3, and then swing with lead, draw 2, warp 1. So you essentially plus 4 cards because you're warping 1. But even though
I
that's
don't even have
not,
to play a
yeah, that's not a hard plus, but that's a soft plus in that deck. So I mean, I like it a lot. I gotta really put my head into it and like probably commit. I'm still kind of playing with Yellow Trunks. I do like that deck also, so I haven't really, jumped the fence yet to see which one I'm gonna do. But um, for anybody who plays black, like I really don't think you can go wrong with Trunks. There's a couple of flex spots in the deck, um, which is why I included the Demigra, the 5-drop, the Dark Overrealm,
Okay.
because I personally am in love with that card. I just think that card does so much for you. It's so much pressure for your opponent to have to deal with a 30k body from turn 2 onward, and you're negging them a card in hand every single turn. But I can see where it gets tricky playing it because it's not a 3 or a 6, it's a 5. So that does make it a little wonky. So I might reconsider that. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, I'm at 53 cards right now. I don't want to go more than 53. Um, and I think the right ratio is no more than 2 to 4 non-Saiyan cards. So I think you're on that.
One of them's a super rare. That's where I'm at. Like so. What I'll say, my biggest flex spot and the biggest change I made this weekend, because I went into the weekend with a 53 card build, right? My biggest flex spots was truthfully the one drop searcher. I was running 3, and I really like the card because it makes your super combos searchable, and it
Mm-hmm.
makes everything that plays from the warp except the 5-drop SR searchable because it's
Mm-hmm.
4 or less,
Yeah.
and it's a fan, so it's
Yeah.
great. And
Yeah.
if you don't have to play on 1, 2, or 3, you can pay the energy and use it, and you're gonna plus a card. What changed for me was watching my opponent interact. Think about how often a card is removed via skill outside of Overrealm. I know you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Think about how often this is a rhetorical question, I guess, for the audience, but how often a card is ever going to get removed? Your opponent is going to interact with you. If they're not, they're losing the game. SS3 Tag Team
Yeah. I knew
Gohan
you were.
in Black Deck. I knew you knew what I was talking about as soon as I started. That card is ridiculous value in this deck because you're going to Overrealm and
Yeah.
your opponent's going to attempt to interact with you. If your opponent put in resources to get rid of that Trunks, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to slap a blocker on the board, and either you're going to swing at me or I'm going to punch you with it next turn.
Sure.
It's not an aggro piece like it was when we were Belmodding off thwartings every turn. Rip Belmod,
Yeah.
miss you.
RP.
Um,
Pour one out.
but yeah, pour one out for the boy. But I think SS3 Gohan in that deck is something that I didn't think of that I'm glad I saw in testing, because now testing with the card, the ceiling for the deck went up.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things you can look at. There's so many Saiyan cards. Like
So many.
there's so many Saiyan cards. You could just even go like on shout out to DBS Tech Planet. You could just go on there and filter black Saiyans and just look and see what you
Like
want to do.
90%.
Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. The only things I'm considering, I like the mid range strategy. I like the when I play mid range, I like linearity in the deck. Like I like having to do something every turn. I really do like the 1-drop Trunks, the top 5 or top X for. I really like
Yeah,
that card because it's a turn 1. Because I'm greedy. I don't like playing my Gohan out of warp on turn 1 because I don't have my units on board. So I'm super greedy when it comes to that because I want to draw that card and gain that marker. So I'm super greedy. So I don't mind playing the Trunks turn 1, especially because it does fish for your super combos and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, I haven't Rain Man the deck yet. I really am considering though. The impact of the True Fighting Spirit cards. Um, because Trunks is not so much of an aggro deck, it's more of a mid range deck. Um, I don't really see myself playing them offensively. So I don't really see myself like obviously the deck does stay at a high life total, so it makes those types of cards worth it to play. But me personally, like I don't see myself playing it. I had plenty of opportunities to play them the other night at locals, and I just chose not to because there was something else that I wanted to do. That could just be me being bad, or that just could be me having a completely different thought process when it comes to playing a deck. I really do like the one drop cantrip Gokus that we got in the set
Interesting.
because I also like the 30k Xeno Evolves Goku and Vegetas
Okay.
because it's a one drop 30k swing that puts a Goku and a Vegeta in the warp for you to have access for thwarting. So I think if I'm gonna go more mid range, because I prefer the linearity of it, like you're gonna do whatever on one, you're gonna do Unison on two, you're gonna do Trunks on three, and then it's like probably like thwarting or whatever. Like you just kind of go from there. But I like to climb the ladder. So like I already know, and my opponent sitting across the table from me already knows that I'm gonna do what exactly I'm gonna do from turns 1, 2, 3. They already know that because it's so linear. But like, what is the gotcha? So for me, the gotcha is okay. I have this little one weenie guy that I had here turn one. He's just sitting here doing nothing. He drew me a card turn one. Okay, now I'm gonna turn him into a 30k body. So I'm going to warp this Goku, which helps because you need cards in your warp for Trunks. I'm going to warp this Goku, get a 30k swing, and then I'm going to just thwarting and do what I have to do that way. So I'm looking at that. I'm also looking at SS4 thwarting because I think that card is really, really slept on right now. But I haven't finalized my build just yet. So
That's an interesting point
after
with
you top next weekend, I'll look at your list and see if I want to play it and just net deck you, or if I just want to completely go a different route.
I will say I think that's an interesting point with the cantrip. What I will say in contrast to that, the reason I like the hate cards in the main, I actually run 3 and 3
Yeah,
of the Vegeta and the Goku. Life is a resource.
sure.
So I don't necessarily always play them offensively. Mainly what I'll do, if I'm playing against a blue deck, I'm absolutely sticking a Vegeta
Oh yeah, you
because then
have
they
to.
have resources
Yeah,
into facing it. And we're seeing a
100%.
lot of blue, whether it's blue red, blue yellow, blue black. Blue green isn't a thing. Well,
No.
Android 16, but
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
21 top today's best. But
Yeah, that's
it's
fair.
it's a matter of sticking them on your kill turn, right? Because they have deflect. So if you stick it too early, you end up losing it anyways. I really like sticking a Goku on my SS4 thwarting turn, so I'll do that on 5. I'll just accrue more advantage on 4 and not tap out. And that way on 5, I'm either getting rid of a Sin if it's against Sin. If not, I'm paying 1 for a Goku. And then if they counter that swing, unless it's petrification, which most of the time it's not,
Hmm.
um, they're pitching 3 cards. And that extra card ends up coming in handy because I have an overrealm following that.
Yeah,
Because I
that's
probably
true.
have a Trunks on the board. So now I swung probably into a Unison or a battle card. They pitched 3 cards if they countered, 2 if not. And then if they counter later on in the turn, they still have to deal with that.
Hmm.
So I really like sticking them on my kill turn. And then they're still thwarting targets. And I like having an excess of them. Because having an excess of thwarting targets is a very good thing in a deck that can sometimes struggle to put cards in the drop
Yes.
if you're not able to stick the Trunks.
Yes.
So let's say I have the thwarting SS3 on the board or in my hand, and I want to play that, and I only have a Vegeta or I only have a Goku in my warp. I can pitch one from my hand, and now I'm set up for the SS4 whenever I want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I were to say what the deck doesn't do well, it's put cards in drop. I mean,
Yep.
you're not putting anything in drop until you get your SR out. Like if you're just not. I mean, granted, he could put 6 in the drop on his own, but just watch out for petrification, man, because
Yeah.
I got petrified twice this weekend and it
Oh
hurt.
no.
Like
Feel
it
bad.
like that like okay, petrification is a great is a great counter. It's a great card. And it hurts, but like it hurt when it was Trunks because it was just like, all right, I'm gonna get 2 swings off and get 6 in the drop, and then go beyond all limits and then go from there. But nope, that didn't happen. So, all right, we've been talking about Trunks way too long. We have to move on.
Yep.
So King Piccolo. I feel like King Piccolo resurged out of nowhere. I always knew like it was a good deck. I mean, it didn't see any play for a while there, and just it came out of nowhere. Like, what is going on with King Piccolo?
So it did see play. I like to try and pay attention to overseas regionals, because the formats are different, but they still show what's good. King Piccolo never went anywhere. It fell off for like 2 weeks when Drum got hit. But that deck doesn't pay energy for anything other than its Unison
Yeah,
and Piano. That's it.
yeah,
Everything else is free.
that's wild.
Everything. So when you look at a format where every other deck is paying energy for its plays, and this deck's running around with its hands in the air, free playing everything, it's like like it doesn't have to touch its energy pile unless it really wants to do stuff.
Yeah,
So my thing is, do I think the deck is broken? No. But I saw a point, I don't know who said it earlier, might have been Tristan earlier, said it's counterintuitive to their design strategy with what they've been doing.
yes,
And I agree with that 100%. Because look at Red UI is phenomenal. It's a great deck. It is balanced and it is incredible. It pays energy for every single thing
yeah,
it does.
it does.
And a reasonable amount of energy.
Yes,
17 costs 1, Frieza costs 1, that Vegeta costs 2, and Ultra Mastery costs 4, and so does the Secret Rare. It has a curve, and everything costs energy. King Piccolo's curve is turn 2. I'm going to put a bunch of things in my life face up for free. I'm going to pay 2 for my Unison. I'm going to untap an energy. I'm going to draw 3 cards. I'm going to res a life, and now you can't touch me. I mean, it's not a problem. I don't have an issue with the deck existing. I think they will hit it, enjoy it while it lasts, because it's counterintuitive to the design strategy.
So yeah, to piggyback on what you were saying, the biggest problem with King Piccolo is not even King Piccolo. It's the what's that saying? Like the horse before the carriage or whatever. Like I don't know. I'm showing my age, but Bandai preemptively got rid of all the free play stuff because it was too powerful, but they left a whole archetype of it just kind of running rampant. And I think it went under the radar because it disappeared for a little bit after the drum got hit. But you can't be hypocritical, right? So I don't think it needs to go. I think Piccolo's fine. I think what'll happen is people will play the deck, it'll get figured out, and then people will move on, and it's fine. Like, give some credit to your player base. I think we have a good collection of intelligent people that can figure stuff out. And my biggest problem with that deck was Drum, and that got addressed. So now the Piccolo Unison is just ridiculous. I mean, but that's any red deck, so that's fine. I really can't think of anything else that's too problematic that red doesn't already have. Like, yes, you're playing your Demon Clans and stuff like that for free, and Tambourine and Symbol, they could get a little bit out of hand, but if you can answer them, if you can address them, then you're okay. But what's going to end up happening is, because Bandai doesn't want to be hypocritical to what it's done in the past with free play, they're going to have to address it somehow, just to kind of save face. It's a my bad situation, like, my bad, dude, sorry. But you make the argument, like, I love playing devil's advocate. You make the argument, well, if Piccolo's allowed to exist, then why can't we get cards like Strength of Legends or Power of Legends Goku and just like the Bardock? Why can't we get those cards back that were banned? Like, if your whole philosophy is free play, then why can't we get our free play stuff back to counteract Piccolo? So instead of kind of undoing what they already did. They're just gonna continue to do what they've been doing, and that's addressing the issue. Again, I mean issue. I say issue in quotation marks because I don't think it's a problem. But the other thing too is there's a new red Goku deck that Bandai probably wants you to play. So there's no way they're going to settle on Piccolo being played more than Goku. It's just not gonna happen. You know, I'm thinking straight up just product wise, right? Like Piccolo came out in set 12, set 13.
Yep.
So we're in set 16 now. Like they're gonna want to move products. So you know, PSA to the community, enjoy it while it lasts. I don't personally think it needs to go anywhere, but I don't work for Bandai and I don't make these decisions. If I made the decisions, believe me, you would not want me to be in charge of bans and erratas because I would not ban or errata anything. I would just let it all happen. I'd bring Shugesh back. I'd bring back Objection. I'd bring back all these minus Killy Zone. I'd bring all these cards back just to see, just to throw a huge grenade and everything and see how it goes. But yeah, listen, I'm glad it's doing well. I'm glad we have options. Like if you don't want to play Piccolo, you can play U7. If you don't want to play red, you can play yellow. You could play black. I mean, you can't play blue or green unless you're playing Soul Striker.
Blue, you just can't play green. Besides King Cold.
I mean, yeah, King Cold and Soul Striker are probably the most popular green and blue decks. But you know, I don't think anybody should sleep on SS4 Vegeta. I think SS4 Vegeta does a really good job right now. Hudson actually showed me that. Shout out to Hudson. In our matchup, SS4 Vegeta is pretty good because you could just play big bodies. So you can't sleep on that because if he snowballs, you lose. Green is King Cold. Gotenks is no bueno. Yeah, Beerus and Champa are too good for anybody to play, so we just don't play them.
Obviously,
yeah, it's just it just can't.
Too broken.
It's just too broken. And then the new blue Crimson Warrior, Crimson God, the new watered down Soul Striker is just not good either. So
it's just bro, imagine playing Soul Striker, but you actually have to fill your deck with all these bad cards in order to get double strike one time.
Yeah, I mean I'm building it, so it's fine. I'm gonna build it.
Sounds right.
Yeah, sounds about right. I'm gonna build it because I just love playing bad decks. Yeah, so shout out to all the Piccolo players out there doing their thing. I don't think people have cracked the code on Trunks yet, which is crazy because I think yeah, because it's crazy to me because I think right out of the gate, like the most playable archetype in that box was probably Trunks. I think, in my opinion, like because like they don't have a lot of SRs. They have that one SR that you can make the argument you don't even need if you're playing just good yellow stuff. They have a 16 card engine and then it's just good yellow stuff. So I think like I felt like out of the box Trunks was going to be the most represented set 16 deck, but it's clearly not. It's U7. So I don't think people have cracked the code on Trunks just yet. I will not be the first, but I think it's a good deck. I think if you want to play yellow, you play Trunks. I think it's a good Icarus replacement, in my opinion. I think it draws a lot of cards, but fairly. I don't think it draws too much like Icarus does. So we'll see how that goes. I think Trunks got second today at Fest.
Yeah.
I am not a believer in Goku Black. I just don't think it's good. I just don't think it's good. What else do I want to talk about? All right, so Expert Deck, Cell. So Expert Deck, Cell. So I love green. When I first started playing the game back set 1, set 2, green was my favorite color in the entire game because set 2 was Cell and Gohan, like Cell Saga. So that was like I gravitated towards that stuff. And they were always like the spot removal color, like green. And then they kind of adopted the identity of like hand destruction and like board destruction. We haven't had
not having a color.
Yeah, exactly. Like now it's crazy how fallen off it has become. But don't worry, Cell is right around the corner. So yeah,
right here.
And you're getting charismatic reprints in the ultimate deck. Listen, I don't ever tell people how to spend their money. I don't. I get really weird about talking about people's finances. I get really weird about people when people ask me like, "Oh, for budgeting advice." I don't like talking about people's money. But if I'm going to tell you one thing about what you should buy, you should go and buy 2 of the Cell Expert decks when they come out. Just because of Charismatic Villain. Charismatic Villain is nobody cares about Prideful Transformation, but Charismatic Villain is the last good counterplay that hadn't gotten reprinted. Oh yeah, so it proves my point even better. Charismatic Villain is the last one to get reprinted. Yes, it is coming out in the collector's edition, but that's like a $100 product. Yeah, that's $100 product. That's not a reprint. So go buy 2 of the Cell. You can take if you don't want to play Cell, you can take every single card in that deck and throw it in the fire. But just go and get the 2 decks for the 2 charismatics, because that alone is worth it. I think charismatic right now, even the second printing, is still sitting at like $15
at the minimum.
So you're talking about a $60 playset that you're gonna pay $30 for.
Yeah, it's either 30 or 40.
That's insane.
He's a charismatic villain.
So go get that, because
as low as 13, yeah.
Yeah. So right. So if you do them at 10 a pop, that's $40. That's $40.
Value.
Yeah. I mean, and not to mention, I mean, everybody loves Cell. Cell is my favorite villain. I'm so biased when it comes to Cell Saga. Like, I'm not even afraid to admit it. Like, Cell Saga, I think to me was peak Dragon Ball. Gohan's my favorite character. Cell's my favorite villain. When Dragon Ball Z was back, I'm really showing my age. When Dragon Ball Z was back on Toonami, where you would go home every day after school to watch Dragon Ball Z, that was the saga I remember the most. Like I remember Frieza Saga, but I remember the tail end of the Frieza Saga, like post Ginyu, like Super Saiyan Goku already. Like I remember those. And then I remember being glued to the TV for every single Android Saga episode from start to finish. And then I remember the Boo Saga, like, in and out. But to me, Cell Saga, Android Saga, that was peak Dragon Ball. Like, there was so much weight behind all that. Like, the Future Trunks stuff, Goku's Heart Attack stuff. Like, the idea of Dragon Ball, which is Goku time. Like, Goku was, like, the main guy. The idea of him passing the torch was unheard of. Like, because this guy died and was brought back to life so many times that you were thinking, oh, he's just going to keep doing it. But no. Like, he died and he stayed dead. So it's like, oh, snap. Like, this is, like, compelling stuff for a cartoon. But anyway, I digress. That's going to be the best green deck, probably, when it comes out.
Oh, it's not even going to be... I mean, King Cold's still going to be around. It's not going anywhere. I mean, shout out to Nate for being a great King Cold pilot.
Yeah.
I mean, it exists.
100%.
King Cold isn't going anywhere. It's really efficient, and it's a good deck. But if we're talking the closest thing to a generic green leader that we've had probably since Set 2 Cell, this is it.
Yeah.
It's the Cell Reboot. And I think the fact that they, instead of printing a new leader, they rebooted old Cell.
Sure.
And they made that the expert deck leader. I think that is freaking brilliant.
Well, it's funny because I hate to cut you off, but it's funny because they must have got that from us.
Sure.
Because I 100% remember having that conversation where Bandai has struggled with reboot leaders. If you're going to do a reboot leader, do it in like a starter deck version and make a starter deck. And we talked about also making a starter deck for every color.
With reprinting charismatic villain.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not trying to like, timestamp it. I'm sure other people have had the same conversation, but I know we've had the conversation and we've posted it, make it public. So I know that's something that has happened. So, I mean, yeah, I think that's the way to go. Like, Bandai has struggled so heavily with reboots. Obviously, we have 2 of them banned. So that just speaks volumes. Like 2 of the reboot leaders have been banned. Just because they're too strong. So Bandai has struggled with that. But doing a reboot, or like, I don't even want to call it a reboot, just like a reimagining or like an update. Like it's the
It's like a
2022 version of Cell, you know? Like it makes it up to today's standards. I think that's the way they have to go in the future.
Yeah, it's balanced. I think it does a lot of really really cool things, like having spot removal um by accruing advantage on the backside, and then flipping, and then you don't technically really accrue a ton of advantage, but you're spamming the board. I mean, just like watching what the deck can do played suboptimally, like out of the box. The developers played like a solid. Granted, they were playing against Green Beerus, which obviously the guy was going easy on him.
Yeah.
But seeing what it does out of the box that quickly on turn 3 and 4, and then like you combine that with things like Perfect Force Cell, and you combine that with things like Dormant and Shocking Death Ball, and these good green cards, quote unquote good, that haven't had a chance to shine in years. Since Gotenks came out, we finally have a good green leader. And
Yeah.
what that does, it is going to warp the format around green, because every time green is good, the format circles around that, because green has a great spread when it's good.
Yeah, get your dormants now, because I think
Mhm.
I think I
Uh,
saw dormant drop to like $9 or $10.
it's the lowest it's been.
Yeah, it's like get your dormants now. Even though dormant is not the greatest card, it's still pretty good. Get your dormants now. Get your, if you're like a rarity enthusiast, get your SPR Android 18 Bionic Blitz super combos, because
Oh,
it's a it's an Android 18. It's an Android 18. Um get those now. Obviously you don't have to worry about charismatic because it's coming in the deck. And then get your show some love to the OG banana hammock. Get your Paragus super combos. Like, get them.
you're big and more.
Go get Big and More. Go get your Paragus super combos. Go pick up your Kamehameha Origins to use as coasters, because you still can't use that card. Go get your green staples. Like, there's not a lot. Because there just hasn't been a reason to print good green cards. But like, go get yourself some Topo Booze or Boopo, whatever you want to call it. Go get yourself some Dark Broly Unisons, which I think that card is so good.
What I would suggest is go through sets 10 through Realm of the Gods,
Yeah,
because I can't remember if it's 16 or 17,
16,
and
16.
look at cards that are colored green,
Green.
that have that green little background on them.
Yeah.
And if they look like they might be good, buy it. Buy a playset.
Snag them up. And don't
Buy a
stop
playset.
there. Don't stop there. There are multicolored cards: green, red, green, yellow, green, blue.
Yellow's a big thing for that, because I know a lot of the cells are green yellow.
Yeah. So look
So
at look at
now
your
that we
green,
have a good
yellow.
cell lead, look at that whole set 9 archetype. A lot of it's not playable, but some of it is.
I will say right now, it is March 27th as we're recording this podcast. Most of you are going to be hopefully watching or listening on March 28th. So let's say March 28th. I am uh what's the word I'm looking for? I'm claiming right now, if you get this expert deck or ultimate deck or whatever deck it's called, whatever you want to call it. If you build a fire like cell deck, right? If you drop cell chain on me, like I'm talking like, if you drop cell chain on me, like Perfect Force Cell, I will scoop to you every time. That's how much I respect that
I mean,
that
it's
old
playable in the deck
school.
because
Yeah,
you just pay for it.
that's how much I respect that old school combo. Because back in the day in set 2 format, that that was the sauce until they reworded certain things, like they limited the 3 drop, and then they didn't errata, but they ruled different timings on Cold Bloodlust where you could fail to find and then just redo it. Those are the OGs. Like, if you're an OG like that and you sit across the table from me and you cell chain me, I will scoop. That's a free win. I don't care if It's like nationals, and we're like going for like the champ. I don't care, bro. If you drop Cell Chain on me, I will scoop because that's legendary in my book.
I
That
got I got
that
Cell Chain the first day at locals.
yeah, I mean,
First day I ever went. I was playing set 2 Vegito
yeah.
with a bunch of terrible I was playing Bundle of Curiosity Son Goku,
Love
a
that card.
trash card,
Love that card.
and I got Cell Chained on. I think it must have been turn 3, and he was like, "Okay, discard down to 3 cards in your hand." I only had like 4 cards in hand, and I was like, "Wait, what?" And then I drew a bunch of cards my next turn because I awakened, and then he did it again the next turn. He was like, "Okay, discard down to 3," and I'm like, "Wait, but why?"
Yeah.
And from that day forward, I have despised green as a color.
Yo, it is that combo is legendary, bro. Cell chain, but like the OG cell chain. All right, I'm gonna give you the floor. I know you're heading out to your fest event next weekend, so just let me know where your head's at. Like, are you confident you get enough testing in? Like, where are you at with all this?
So the positive of switching to a different color, especially a different style of deck, gives me the perspective of what is good and what is bad in this format.
Okay,
I've
that's
done
fair.
a ridiculous amount of testing, like 2 to 3 games a day, whether it's with a random or shout out to Hudson and Tristan and Nate, and and all that testing I've done at Dice Head. Shout out to the boys down there that are rolling up to the event with me. I've done a ton of testing, and especially the last 2 weeks with Trunks. Um, this format is a lot more wide open than a lot of people think.
Oh, 100
There are
percent.
some there are some decks that can really, really steal games. Um, for example, 21 and 16 didn't go anywhere.
Nope.
No one's talking about them because there was all that hype after Nats and Worlds, and nobody talked about it. But those decks didn't go anywhere.
No.
You have to be aware of every single color because Invoker is back. And if you sit across, like, I know Sublet is going to be at that event. If I sit across from Sublet and he pulls Invoker out, I hope I draw well because him and Legends are the only 2 people that know how to play that deck. I am convinced. I love this community. Invoker exists, but
Yeah.
it is not Baby's first control deck.
No.
Um, I will say that Yellow Sin exists. I will say that Yellow Trunks and Yellow Goku Black are going to be forces in the format because they are both extremely efficient. Red UI is an incredible option if you can afford to pick up red staples. I had them, I just wasn't interested in the deck. I think I truly what I'm coming to is this format is wide open, and if you know what you're doing, I think that you have a chance to top with any deck.
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, the most important skill in this freaking game is matchup knowledge and card pool knowledge.
That's
If
fair.
you can, if you know what you're sitting across from, as well as or better than your opponent, you have a higher percentage of winning no matter what the matchup is. I can sit across from a bad Sin Shenron player and know exactly the way they're going to sequence. I used to sit across back when Invoker was really good. I used to sit across from shout out to Kobe and Tristan. I played against Invoker so much that I knew exactly how they were going to sequence their turn. Turn 1, charge a blue, play TOP Arena. Scoop top 3, find a cap blow. Turn 2, pay 1 energy, pick up a card, swing lead, pick up another card, pass. Turn 3, Vegeta, awaken. It was easy to predict. So if you're able to get that type of matchup knowledge with multiple decks in the format, you can top. I think that's the most important skill. And for this being my first event, I'm not going to try to put too much pressure on myself. I think I'm going to go in with a positive attitude and I'm going to go in knowing what I know. And I think that knowledge is going to help me a lot.
That's good, man. Listen, all you got to do is just, you know, have fun, man. Just have fun.
Yeah.
Like, just go have fun. I think Nate's going, so at least he'll be there. Um, just like big events, like you know, people think most of what I'm about to say is really addressed to newer players or players who don't think that they're as good as the people that they play against consistently. Big events like a fest event or like a regional or like when we used to have ARGs or like a PPG, yeah, it's a competitive event. Sure. You're going to go there, people are going to be extra sweaty, like I get it. But I don't think that should take away from the experience. Like yes, people don't realize how mentally taxing it is to play, 6 to 10 rounds of Swiss, like extremely sweaty games, like thinking every little detail, like that really gets to you mentally. Like it's tough. But I don't think that should take away from the experience of just traveling to a destination, hanging out with the boys, meeting people in the community. Like it's like a networking event. And I say that now, especially because of how the world has been in the last couple of years with the pandemic. Shout out to COVID. Um, and the lack of in-person events and the threats of paper cardboard trading card games just like dying. I credit a lot of the collecting market keeping the game afloat, not just Dragon Ball, but just like card games in general. I credit a lot. I credit all of the content creators in this community who are passionate and who do things to help the game, like to propel the game. And we might not always agree with everything, but it's still for the good of the game at the end of the day. So it's big. Like it's gonna be competitive. It's gonna be sweaty. But if you're on the fence about it, like if you're on the fence about going or not going, just try it. I mean, just check it out. You're never gonna know if something is for you if you don't try it. If you win, I want exclusive rights to the deck profile. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I'm just kidding, man. Whoever asks, like just go have fun, dude. That's what it's about. Go meet people, you know. That's what it's about, man. I remember my first event that I ever went to. It was an ARG. It was one of their Circuit Series events. It was like a 300-man tournament, and I was nervous as hell. But you know what? It was a super fun weekend. I was with the boys. Like, that stuff's important too. So, I wish you the best. Safe trip, of course. If you need anything, let me know. Take it easy on testing this week. Don't burn yourself out.
My
That's,
goal. I'm
that's
gonna
pro-
try to go a little late.
yeah, like that's probably my best advice. Like when you're in the week of, like try not to go too crazy because you're just gonna burn yourself out. You want to be fresh for the event. It's a 2 day. It's a Saturday, Sunday, right?
I think it's just Saturday. I think it's Swiss in the morning, Top Cut in the evening.
All right, so we'll play next week's upload by ear. I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about following the event. But for those of you watching, thank you so much for the support. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and please hit the notification button so you can stay up to date with everything. No counters, no combos. We really do appreciate the support, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Be there or be squared. That was more of like a rectangle, but I'll take it.
All right, whatever, bro.